Well, hello and welcome to Tyrrell's Classic Workshop. We're up for a workshop catch-up again, another workshop catch-up this time round. We're going to look at what Craig's been up to first of all, but we've got two Lamborghini Isleros here at the moment, which is a rare car. And one of them, Ryan at Cheshire Prestige Paintworks, our paintwork partner, has just finished painting in the customer's choice of colour, and it is looking absolutely stunning. It's a sort of dark coppery, browny metallic. It just looks gorgeous. It's an original Lamborghini colour from the time. They knew what they were doing, these car manufacturers. They knew how to make Lamborghinis pop in the 1960s, whether it be a lime green, an orange, a yellow, a blue, or a brown metallic. And the funny thing is, brown metallics, in the 70s, a lot of cars, you could get Ford Granada gears in brown metallics and copper metallics, even orange metallics. And for years, you couldn't get those sort of colours, particularly on cars. They were very infra dig. We have a Mercedes 450 SEL 6.9 here in Milan Brown, which is a brown metallic. But now, cars, brown metallics are back in, and copper metallics and things like that. This Islero is sort of on point because that's the colour it was originally when it was new. And Ryan has done, as I say, a fantastic job. We're going to get that car back here shortly to start building it up. We've done the engine and various other bits while it's been away. We're just now going to look at what Craig's been doing. He's been doing something truly beautiful with the interior. We are up with a certain air of inevitability visiting Craig's little corner, his emporium of the workshop. And we have, by pure coincidence, got two Lamborghini Isleros in at the moment. The Islero, I've done a video on that a long time ago, a couple of years ago now, and they made 125, and then they went on to another 100 odd of the S version, the slightly uprated one. So they're a rare car. They only ever made, I think, a maximum of 300 Isleros. And we're doing this for an overseas customer, and they have wisely specified Connolly Vaumol leather. So this is VM3218, which was quite common on Ferrari Daytonas. A lot of Daytonas had Connolly VM3218. But the customer has asked for this at extra cost, over and above sort of normal leather, and Craig has been doing a bit, which you've been doing a lot, haven't you? And including this amazing gear lever shroud, which can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, it's quite crazy. Well, this is out of another. This is out of the other Islero, yeah. And so we still had an interior out the one that I'm trimming. So it's got this crazy gaiter where I took apart the original one to see, obviously, how they got this sort of design. And what they do is they sort of take a little nip there, and then they sew it so that piece juts out. And then they sort of mirror that, but then they do it from the other side, so it goes in. Maybe I'm not explaining myself. Right, I can hear myself, and it's not a good thing.
Well, I'm with you. I'm with you. Yeah. Just hang on. So that's effectively facing out.
Yes, yeah. And then that one is facing inwards, but it's all one piece. It's not sort of a different panel. Yes. And then you've got this sort of piece that goes into there. Yeah, so I know.
I mean, we'll turn this round because obviously you're seeing the backside of it there, to coin a phrase. But it looks beautiful. It looks a bit like one of the characters from The Wizard of Oz. His hat. I'm trying to remember which one it was.
It's a bit Harry Potter.
It's definitely a bit out there. Yeah. But look at this beautiful stitching, Craig. Honestly, it's just gorgeous. And is this removable? This panel in the middle?
Well, it's
stuck on.
Yeah, it's bolted down there to.
Yeah.
But
And again, this is like all Italian car parts of this era.
Yes,
It's fiberglass.
Yes.
It's a really rough fiberglass molding.
Yeah.
But look at that. I mean, you know, compare and contrast that versus that. It's just gorgeous.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, this leather and the smell. If we could bottle this and sell it on YouTube,
It smells lovely.
we'd make an absolute fortune.
It smells unlike any other leather we get. It really does.
It's vegetable tanned. I'm sure Jonathan Connolly, he's been over this many times with me, but it's vegetable tanned leather, and it is the best. I mean, going back to the 1970s, Rolls-Royce used Connolly leather exclusively, apart from if somebody ordered Draylon for their Silver Shadow interior or Bentley C-Series. And they actually bought the leather from Norway because they don't use barbed wire fencing in Norway.
Right.
So that the leather didn't get any nicks in it.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, the lengths that they went to, really. But so we've got 8 hides here, haven't we?
Yeah.
You're plotting out.
Well, yeah, that's it. You still have to, but you know, there's still going to be scars because it's a natural.
Yes.
A natural thing. So you're still dodging scars, and you know there are little nicks here and there, but obviously it becomes more of a problem when we start doing the flute. You know, you want the best bits to be part of the seats, so you're trying to get the nicest cuts, but you don't want it too smooth as well, because because the grain does change throughout the hide. If we put a hide down here now, you could, you know, we would see the sort of perimeter would be, you know, it would have a heavier grain, and then there's other parts that are a bit more smoother. So.
I mean, looking at this, that's a slightly heavier grain.
Yes, it is, yeah.
Don't take this as a criticism.
Yeah.
It's absolutely not. But, you know, you've got a slightly heavier grain there.
Yes, yeah.
And then a bit of a smoother...
Yeah, exactly, because
But that's the way that's the whole point. I mean, modern car interiors use embossed grain leather.
Yes,
where it's run through a machine to make sure it doesn't matter which bit of the hide you pick up, it's going to be the same as that bit of hide.
the start and the finish, yes, exactly.
Whereas this is a whole other level. You have to plot hide by hide which bits are going to, so for example, if that bit butted up against there, it looks different because the grain looks different. Whereas on here, you've chosen all smooth so that it all looks of a piece. And you have to do that. How many hides are we using on this? 8?
8, yes, yeah. But there's also, it will, a lot of it does have a little bit of a grain, but by the time you've pulled it, that grain disappears as well. And it's the same with, like I said, the perimeter. You know, it might not be as lumpy near the end when you finish trimming it.
Right.
But the scars you have to dodge. You know, there's
and this bit under here is
the start of the front seats, the flutes. Right. So some people. They sew the foam on the scrim foam into the cover. I don't do that. I fill them separately, so I've got more control over how precise they are. I mean, and I think they go a bit dead. You know, the flute tends to die a bit if you sew the foam into it. Yes. So we fill that. This
is the best automotive leather money can buy.
Yes, yeah.
And you are doing the best work money can buy. I'm saying that, not you, because this is I mean, this is fantastic, really. You look at car brochures of the time, of the 1960s, and some of the stitching, even though they're using, you're not using some super aligning, extra laser guided machine, you're just using a basic sewing machine. And the quality of their stitching is a bit grim, actually, but this is just beautiful. Oh, Craig, it's amazing. Well, here we have a lovely car that's adorning the workshop at the moment. This is a Lamborghini 400 GT 2+2. Some while back, we restored the 6th ever Lamborghini built. We didn't do a full restoration on it, but about 80–90%. And what an honour it was to restore the 6th road car. But this is a 400 GT 2+2, so it's a later, more developed version, steel body, as opposed to hand-formed aluminium, which the early cars were. But this is a beautiful car, actually. It's in for an engine rebuild, and it's a colour very close to a very popular 400 GT colour called Grigio St Vincent. Looks a bit lighter to me than that colour, but still a stunning colour. Suits the lines of this car perfectly, in my humble opinion, with a tobacco leather interior, which is, again, particular to this car, but actually quite unusual. There weren't that many leather interiors around in the 80s and 90s with that, but yeah, the whole thing works very well. We're going to be delving into this engine rebuild more in future videos, but for the moment, it's just great to have it here and a lovely job to do. Well, another car that I've been wanting to feature for some time, but we just haven't had one in, it's just the way it goes, is a Ferrari Berlinetta Boxer. This was a very important part of Ferrari's history. It was their first flat 12 supercar. The early ones were raw and the later ones were more refined. That was just because Ferrari were trying to be more user-friendly, apart from anything else. But I'll go into this more deeply in a future video, but it's great to have a Boxer in, and there's lots I can talk about on these cars, actually. They were a real step change in Ferrari's way of doing things. So we're going to be focusing on this, and yeah, it's going to be quite interesting to delve into this one. Ferrari 512 BBI. Well, this is a job that's trolling along at its own pace. It's surprisingly difficult to find parts for these, actually. This is a Lotus Esprit S3, and but the thing about this car is it's only done 7,000 miles from new, which is absolutely genuine, but it has been on an offshore island in the UK, and the salt air does go for cars there. So we're doing a lot of we're keeping an eye on costs, because obviously this is not a Lamborghini Miura. It's not a multi-million pound car, or even £1 million car, come to that. But we are keeping a weather eye on costs, but we're also trying to compress as much work in as we can. So I'm going to do a full video on this car later, because these are a gem of a car, actually. They really are. Very interesting construction process as well, which I shall talk about in more detail when the time comes. But yeah, this is we've got some new fuel tanks for it, which have been made. The original tanks were steel, and they were absolutely red, rusty inside. They looked like they'd been in a ship that had been at the bottom of the ocean for about 50 years. They were horrendous. So we've had new aluminium tanks made, which are fitted. They go either side here in exactly the right place on a mid-engine car for weight distribution, ahead of the rear wheels, and low down. So yeah, I'm looking forward to giving this car its first run for decades, actually. So yeah, I'll keep my powder dry until we make the video on it, but it's coming along nicely. We've had all the brakes overhauled, the braking system and the clutch, that is coming together. So it's well on the way, this car now. We've overhauled the fuel system, new tanks, Pete's rebuilt the carburetors, and yeah, it's going to be a nice car, this, when it's done, actually. And how many 7,000-mile Lotus Esprits are there in the world? Not too many. Well, it's very interesting, because a few months ago, time flies, we had an Aston Martin V8 Vantage Le Mans twin supercharged car in. And what turns up? An Aston Martin V8 Coupe. Now this is the not supercharged version of that car. This is the standard car, which I'm going to go into more deeply. It's worth its own video, because the development and life of this car is very interesting. This is not the first one we've had in. We have looked after, done work on a few over the years, as they've sort of been bought and sold by mainly local people, really, because there's no shortage of people who seemingly can look after Aston Martins to a greater or lesser degree. But the interesting thing about this is they only made 101 of them. It's a very, very rare car in both left and right-hand drive versions only. They made them through the 1990s, I actually like them very much. I think they drive very well. So I'm going to do another video on this soon. This has had a new alternator on this car, and it's now behaving beautifully, but I think it deserves its own video. It's a nice piece of Aston Martin history, so we're going to be looking at that as well in more depth in the future. And another Aston Martin that deserves its own video is this car. This is a DBS V8, but it's finished in another amazing 1960s colour called, in Aston Martin speak, Bahama Yellow. Again, we've been doing some work on this car. It was not a happy chappy when it came in at all. And Marcus has been working on the fuel injection system and the ignition system. They are quite tricky to get right, these. So we're going to be looking in some depth at the workings of this car. This is an automatic. I did cover one of these a while back, an olive green car, same colour as George Lazenby drove in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. This, of course, famously is the same colour as Roger Moore drove in The Persuaders as Sir Lord Brett Sinclair. Terribly sorry, Roger. Yeah, we're going to be looking at this as well. So lots of interesting stuff coming up. And this has been a bit of a journey, this car, but we're getting there with it now. Yeah, lots of interesting things going on, actually. That concludes another Tyrrell's Classic Workshop video. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll be back with something else very soon.